Hello, everyone. This is Janko Castro with QX Financial, welcoming you again to one of our interviews that we've been doing in the last couple of months. So today I want to introduce you to one of my best friends, one of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Escobar Rhodes. He's one of our financial professionals here at QX Financial. But I asked him to be here with us today because he has an amazing story to share with a lot of you, not only about the value of planning, but about the value of living a life on purpose and the value of persistency. So, Escoba, thank you so much for being here today and agreeing to this interview.
Oh, no, no. It's an honor to be asked. Thank you.
Wonderful. So if you don't mind giving the audience a little bit of a context about you, a little bit of your background and what you were involved to before the main thing we're going to be talking about. So if you don't mind sharing with the audience a little bit more about your background.
Well, when I, it all started when I graduated from college. I went into the Navy. Um, I was actually a reactor operator, but I got involved as the controlled material supervisor, which I learned about the supply chain of making sure the ship was ready with all the spare parts, or if we had a breakdown overseas, it was my job to try to find the parts that we needed through the local sourcing. So when I got out, I actually went into international business,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working with the warehousing down in San Diego, along that San Diego border. There were factories and warehouses on the San Diego side and the Tijuana side, Mexico and Imperial Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that. And then in 2001, 9/11 happened, the border shut down. In 2002, I moved up to Orange County, and I was doing the same thing.
Just working.
And then, I was working out in the gym. What happened was in 2005, I had an aneurysm pop. I went in the hospital, found out what happened, and I had an open heart surgery. Healed, went back to work. 2008, I had another one.
Mm.
And had the surgery that healed. And in 2009, we found another one on an annual ultrasound. So I went in to get that repaired. Thinking the third surgery was, and within the third time, it turned out to be a bit much for my body to handle. And the aneurysm, that area burst. And when I woke up, I was paralyzed from the waist down.
Yep. And that's how we met when you were already in those circumstances. And this is the reason why I wanted you, the audience, to learn about Escoba's story because obviously you are in the financial services business now, but you went through a long road of acceptance, recovery. You went through a long process, and I know you have a lot of help, obviously from your family, your loved ones, but also from some of the planning that you did before the accident happened. So tell us more about what happened, how did you gain the situation, and then what happened after your surgery.
Well, and because, I spent 4 or 5 months laying in the hospital, hating and blaming everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, got over that. And, I was living in a condo and I had to let that go. Of course, I thought I was only going to be in for 2 weeks. So, halfway through 2010, I had been let go of my job. I had no place to live. I had no idea what I was going to do. And it turned out that thanks to a life insurance policy that I had purchased back in my 20s when I was in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
um, my dad and I had completely forgotten about it. My dad, on one of his visits, says, this is the mail you're still getting at the house. Because I never gave him an updated address. I forgot everything.
Right.
And I went through and it was USAA life insurance. And I was like, oh my gosh. Open that up, found the phone number. I called them, let them know what happened. They had a representative in my room the next week.
Wow.
And we spoke and I found out that, and this is back in I bought it in 88. So they were structured a little bit different, but I happened to check the box that would allow me to access a portion or all of my death benefit should I become permanently disabled.
So now that's what we call an accelerated benefit rider of sorts.
Right.
Right.
And it's still the same thing. I mean, I can no longer perform 2 out of those 6 ADLs they called
Mm-hmm.
activities of daily living. I followed them.
Right.
And I didn't take all of it. I took half. And I have to tell you, so the day I got discharged, I had no job, had no place to live, but I did have a check for $125,000.
Right.
Now, I didn't go crazy, and I've seen people take it and go to Las Vegas and blow it all in a month.
Right.
But I put that in the bank. My mom put me up for about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, Sonia, my wife, first I went around and I looked at different schools to apply for. I got accepted at USC, said I wanted to go there. They had an Orange County campus, so I asked Sonia, my wife, to look for an apartment near the Orange County campus, which is why I happened to be living where I was.
Mm-hmm.
It also turned out that USC had a discount for veterans. So I'm like, well, great. But that, plus the insurance, I was able to complete 4 years of school. Part of that actually had to do from the hospital. I ended up having to go back.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to buy a computer and get on Skype and do it through the classroom. I handled 1 year from the computer. But I graduated.
Right.
And I had a little bit of money left over. I was able to buy an automobile and get set up and get out and find a job.
So I guess you
So
will
I
say.
started working back again in 2014.
So I guess you will say that being able to go back to school and resharpen your skills allow you to go back in the labor force, despite of being disabled at that point in time.
Right. Well, I couldn't do what I was doing.
Right.
One of the things I was doing was redesigning warehouses, and most of your clients have screwed up warehouses, and there's a lot of climbing over stuff.
Right.
So I just couldn't do that. So when you get disabled, there's a category that if you can't do any job or you can't do your present.
Right.
And I couldn't do my present. But there were still plenty of other careers I could do.
Yeah, and just for people to know, how severe is your injury? Is that going to be is a permanent injury, or is it something that you will be able to overcome eventually?
No, well, the answer that I'm always given is At this present level of technology,
Mm-hmm.
there is no way for me to walk. Now they do have these, you know, electric braces now that you can use, but they're not strong enough. You don't have balance, so you have to use two canes.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, with my job, I do need my hands.
Right.
So a wheelchair is still better off.
Definitely.
But as long as I can get around and talk and use my hands and still write, and I still have my brain, there's many things I can still do.
Definitely.
However, and I will say this has a bit to do with it. Having the money to go to USC, not to say that Cal State colleges are bad,
Mm-hmm.
but being able to be a part of that group and that network and having the money to help go there, I believe significantly has affected my ability to, thrive out in the business world today, with my injury.
So let's talk about that. So you graduated. Now you're in a whole different situation, and obviously, which is the point of our interview, that the fact that you had this policy, this financial vehicle we call life insurance, that help you to get back to school and get back on your feet and reorganize your life despite of the tragedy of what happened. Uh, but then you got into the financial services industry. So tell us more about that.
Well, my first job, actually, I was a therapist. I'm working for the county as my social worker. My concentration was in mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly, I realized most of the problems we had with veterans were with money.
Mm-hmm.
Either they couldn't find a job, or they had a job and still wasn't enough, and that was causing so many other problems. I mean, yes, there was PTSD. Yes, there was depression. There was a lot of these things, but the reason why the family was not getting fed well enough, or maybe one of the reasons why they ended up homeless, was for lack of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to admit, I was where I was because I had a chunk of money to boost me.
Right.
So it was the planning that I had done when I was in my 20s that enabled me to get back on my feet when an accident happened in my 40s. So, and this has come true, by the way, believed I could help more people more efficient. I went into the financial side of it and helped younger folks get started on insurance and understanding just how the overall insurance works. It's just not a term policy. There's a whole world of insurance that can help you gain a nice, secure financial footing for
Mm-hmm.
later on in life. Now, don't get me wrong. I hope you never have to use it.
Right.
The goal of insurance is for when you're older, you can then take the money and enjoy it.
Right.
However, if the unfortunate circumstance occurs that you do need it, well, I'd rather you need it and have it than need it and not.
Right. So yeah. So you were working in the healthcare area with mental health, and say, okay, well, there's other areas that are higher priority, maybe, or are also priority to get these veterans back on their feet, and that's kind of what led you to make the change. But you've shared with me that now you're trying to teach your clients about this idea that everything is connected: your education, your social well-being, your physical well-being, obviously your financial well-being, you have this holistic approach, so to speak, like, hey, it's not just about the financial component, even though this can help with these other areas, but we're trying to build all this whole person, let's call it that, approach.
Yes, I mean, and I've been doing a lot of reading, studying, and speaking with
Mm-hmm.
folks up at at school and in different areas, with financial planners, with trainers, with you know college professors, and we all discovered that they're all
Mm-hmm.
connected to the point where if you look at physical health, social well-being, financial health, and education, that someone who is well established in all four, the loss of one, the other three can help uplift the other. In my case, I lost, my financial, no, my physical health.
Mm-hmm.
But last year, even my doctor said, you're healthier now than you were, in the past. You're as healthy now as you were since before your accident. And I said, you mean minus the wheelchair? And she said, no, I'm talking about your entire health. And that's when it dawned on me that, yes, something happened and I lost, but even in a wheelchair, I can still be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for the education that I received, or the financial ability that I had earned, and the strength of my social network, I still wouldn't be.
Right.
And I've seen people the opposite. I've seen people with all those other things lose all their money and become bankrupt. But with the help of their social networks and their education and their financial, they're able to get it back.
Exactly.
I've seen people lose their they have to move from Florida to California, leave all their friends behind. Well, guess what? After a couple of years, they have a bunch of new friends in this new area.
Right.
Having the other three. Now, is it a guarantee? No. I've seen people with great friends, tons of money, a great career, and they still end up suffering from depression.
Yeah.
Or suffering from drug abuse. So to say that it's the end all, no, but overall, they're all connected.
Yeah, so I think that's the point, that it all connected, and I think that's why we wanted to have this interview with you, because we want people to see that stuff happens in life, obstacles comes along, and obviously we have a very abridged version of the whole story since we don't have so much time today. But the point is that you were able to overcome all these, and recover some of those legs, for as we're calling them, or some of those areas, and at least the financial one was, you were able to do that because of the support that you received from the life insurance policy you acquired before your accident.
Well, I mean, yeah, my relevant, I mean, wow, think about it is, I was lying almost dead in the hospital the month of November, December of 2009. So I spent 2 months fighting just to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
10 years later, I'm happily married. I live in a wonderful neighborhood. I have a very nice apartment, and I have a job that I love. And there are people that have never gone through that experience who still can't see it.
Very true.
And my financial health is better than it's ever been.
Right.
And I'm still in a wheelchair. This is what is kind of sometimes blows my mind is, being in a wheelchair was just a perception of having poor health. Turns out I'm healthier now in it than I was not in it.
Yeah, no, I think it's testament that we all create our circumstances, and obviously you've done a fantastic job in overcoming, but also creating and handling your own circumstance and finding your opportunities. So that's what's amazing about your story. Um, so thank you, Scott, for sharing this again a bridge version of your story with the world, right? Anybody who's watching this. Uh, is there any last word of advice, something that you would recommend? Somebody's watching this and saying, hey, I gotta do some planning, I gotta do some thinking about what I want. Where can they start, or what kind of advice would you give somebody that is watching this and wondering what their next step should be?
Well, and at the risk of sounding self-serving, um,
Call me.
call well, me or just call someone at QX Financial.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can, but
Yeah, it's fine. Commercial.
we are. I mean, and what I like about everyone I work with is we would rather spend 2 to 3 months with you, making you very knowledgeable about the process, and then have you choose where to go forward
Mm-hmm.
versus just throwing a bunch of products at you and say, sign this, we're too busy, we have to go to the next person.
Definitely.
And it's about creating it, it's about stimulating it, but it's about achieving financial independence.
Right.
Whether or not there are millionaires out there that, as we've learned this year, the slightest change in the environment, and they're worried about paying their bills next.
Exactly.
And there are people out there that'd rather not have this pandemic going on, but they'll still be okay.
Exactly.
And I think that's what independence is being able to do okay, regardless about what's going on around you.
Definitely, and it is possible, and we can achieve that with clients at all income levels. So let's go about.
Yes, and it's not that hard.
Right.
That's what we want to let people know.
Yeah.
And I learned that one of the things that my doctor told me in the hospital. You might not have had any control over how you got hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but you have 100% control over how you heal.
Right. Very true.
Same way with money. How it got lost, we don't know it's gone. But we can show you how to get it back, and in a secure way that you don't lose it again.
Exactly. Well, I would like to close with that thought. It was a great piece of advice. Escobar, thank you so much for your time. And for the rest of you, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video if you did like it. And if you have any further questions, you want to know more, all the information, all contact information will be in the description. Thank you all. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Escobar.
Thanks, Django.